The Ukrainian Defence Forces and the Russian occupation troops had over 30 combat engagements over the course of the 13th of July, and Ukrainian defenders successfully repelled Russian attacks near Berkhivka on the Bakhmut front and near Pervomaiske on the Avdiivka front. Source: General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook. Information is of 6 o'clock on the 14th of July. Quote, "Last night, the enemy launched another attack on Ukraine with Iranian-made Shahed attack UAVs. Information on the aftermath of this attack is currently being confirmed. Details: Over the past 24 hours, Russian occupiers launched a combined missile and air strike on Ukraine with 2 Kaliber cruise missiles, 1 Iskander-M ballistic missile and 20 Iranian-made Shahed attack drones. As a result of successful combat operations, the Ukrainian Defence Forces destroyed 2 Kaliber cruise missiles and 20 attack UAVs. In total, the Russians carried out more than 52 airstrikes and fired from multiple launch rocket systems on the positions of Ukrainian troops and on settlements about 50 times. Unfortunately, civilians, including children, have been affected, and residential buildings and other civilian infrastructure facilities have been damaged. The Russians continue to focus their main efforts on the Kupiansk, Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Marinka fronts, and heavy fighting continues there. Over 30 combat engagements took place over the last day. On the Severshchina and Slobozhenshchina fronts, Russian forces launched an airstrike near Veterinarn, Kharkiv Oblast, over the course of the past 24 hours. They also deployed mortars and artillery to fire on more than 15 civilian settlements, including Kamyn, Chernihiv Oblast, Pokrovka, Ryazny and Vlika Pisarivka, Sumy Oblast, and Murovsky, Olyaniko, Riznikov and Balahivka, Kharkiv Oblast. Ukrainian forces are holding the line on the Kupiansk front. Russian aircraft struck areas in and around Kyslivka and Kotlyarivka, Kharkiv Oblast. The settlements of Stroivka, Krasny Persh, Novomlinsk, Vorokna, Zapadna and Kupiansk, Kharkiv Oblast came under Russian mortar and artillery fire. On the Lyman front, Russian forces conducted unsuccessful offensive operations to the east of Nevsky, Luhansk Oblast, and east of Ternit, Donetsk Oblast. They also carried out airstrikes in and around Nevsky and Bilohorivka, Luhansk Oblast, and Spern, Donetsk Oblast. The Russians shelled over 10 settlements, including Nevsky and Bilohorivka, Luhansk Oblast, and Torsky, Verkhnyokamyansk, Spern and Rozdalivka, Donetsk Oblast. On the Bakhmut front, the Ukrainian defenders successfully repelled all Russian attacks near Berkhivka despite being constantly covered with Russian artillery fire. Over 15 settlements, including Vashukivka, Chasev Yar, Oleksandro Shultin, Delivka and Pivnikny, Donetsk Oblast came under Russian artillery fire. On the Avdiivka front, the Ukrainian defenders successfully repelled all Russian attacks near Pervomaiske despite being constantly shelled with Russian artillery fire. The Russians carried out an airstrike in the vicinity of Avdiivka, Donetsk Oblast. Russian forces shelled more than 10 civilian settlements, including Berdichi, Stepov and Avdiivka, Donetsk Oblast. On the Marinka front, Ukrainian forces continued to hold back the offensive of Russian troops in the area of Marinka. The Russians shelled more than 10 civilian settlements, including Krasnohorivka, Marinka and Georgivka, Donetsk Oblast. On the Shakhtarsk front, Russian forces conducted unsuccessful offensive operations in the vicinity of Novomikhailivka and carried out airstrikes near Makarivka, Donetsk Oblast. They shelled Paraskoviivka, Novomikhailivka, Novokranka, Storozhev, Blahodatna and Makarivka, Donetsk Oblast. Russian forces on the Zaporizhia and Kherson fronts are focusing their efforts on preventing Ukrainian forces from advancing. They carried out airstrikes in and around Pryun, Rivnopil, Malotokmachka, Orikhiv, Malakaterynivka and Kozatsky. The Russians shelled over 20 civilian settlements, including Novodorivka, Malinivka, Huliaipol, Zaliznikny, Bilahiria and Orikhiv, Zaporizhia Oblast, Kherson, Zolota Balka, Mikhailivka, Antonivka, Chornobivka and Kizimysk, Kherson Oblast. Meanwhile, Ukraine's defense forces continued to conduct offensive operations on the Melitopol and Berdyansk fronts, where they are consolidating the positions they had previously captured, striking Russian targets with artillery and engaging in counter-battery fire. Over the course of the day, Ukrainian aircraft carried out 8 airstrikes on areas where Russian military personnel, weapons and equipment were concentrated, and 2 more on Russian anti-aircraft missile systems. Units of Ukraine's rocket forces and artillery struck a cluster of Russian military personnel, 2 ammunition storage points, 10 field artillery units, 3 air defense systems, an electronic warfare station, a radar station and another important facility of the Russians. General Staff. Ukraine continues to advance south of Bakhmut. Ukrainian troops continue to advance south of Bakhmut in the Bila Hora-Avdiivka sector, spokesperson of the General Staff of the Armed Forces Andriy Kovalov informed on July 14. There are successes in the Bila Hora-Avdiivka sector, troops are solidifying newly taken positions, Kovalov commented. Ukrainian forces continue to repel Russian attempts to advance at the Kupiansk, Lyman, Avdiivka, and Marinka directions, he added. As Kovalov specified, Moscow is deploying its reserves in these sectors and heavy fighting is underway. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar also reported on Ukrainian advances on Bakhmut's southern flank on July 13. At the same time, offensive operations are underway on the southern front line in the directions of Melitopol and Berdyansk where Ukrainian forces aim to degrade Russian military capabilities, she added. In the sectors of Novodanilivka, Balka Shiroka and Mala Tokhmachka Novopokrovka, Ukrainian troops have advanced and solidified new positions, Maliar informed. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported on July 14 that Russia had lost 236,590 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion on February 24 last year. This number includes 550 casualties Russian forces suffered just over the past day. War criminal Gherkin warns of new army mutiny in Russia after General Popov's dismissal. Russia may face another armed mutiny after the dismissal of Russian Army Major General Ivan Popov, who previously complained about the colossal problems of the occupying forces in Ukraine. That's according to convicted war criminal and former official of the Russian puppet authorities in Donetsk, Igor Gherkin Strelkov, who posted his views on his Telegram channel on July 13. Popov's dissatisfaction with the situation at the front, openly expressed to the Russian military leadership, leaked out through another general and part-time member of the Russian State Duma, Andrei Gurulev, Gherkin said. After that, the now former commander of the 58th Army, who calls himself Spartacus, and his supporters, gladiators, recorded an appeal to the Russian military, in which he accused the General Staff of complete indifference. For his part, Gherkin believes that since this scandal eventually spilled into public, the uncontrolled collapse of the Russian army has come even closer.